Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on custom AV for Zoom Rooms. If you've ever tried to deliver a high-quality broadcast, whether it's a company-wide town hall, a hybrid event, a training session, or even a live stream product launch, you know that the stakes are really high. Poor audio, awkward camera angles, and clunky transitions can turn an inspiring message into a frustrating experience for both presenters and the audience. And that's where Zoom comes in. With custom AV for Zoom Rooms, you can turn any space into a professional-grade podcast studio without the complexity or cost traditionally associated with high-end setups. From multiple camera feeds and advanced microphone arrays to seamless content sharing and remote production capabilities, Zoom helps you create broadcasts that are clear, engaging, and reliable. Today, we'll walk you through the top broadcasting challenges organizations face and show you exactly how Zoom Rooms, combined with the right AV configuration, can help you overcome them. Whether you're an IT admin, an AV specialist, or an event producer, you'll walk away with practical ideas and inspiration for your next broadcast. So let's jump in. I'm Angela Donohue, your moderator today, and I'm in product marketing at Zoom and manage our meetings and spaces solutions, which include Zoom Rooms, workspace reservation, and visitor management, all the features that we have to support our hybrid workforce. And I have with me today a couple of experts in the industry to help us break down what the solution means and how it can help you and your organization. First, let me introduce our very own Andy Carluccio, Head of Client Innovation here at Zoom. Andy?
Well, thank you so much, Angela. It's great to be here today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Wonderful. And Ira Weinstein, the founder of Recon Research. Ira?
Hi there, I'm Ira. I'm an industry analyst with more than 30 years experience designing and installing meeting rooms, and I spend my time helping companies make the most of their conferencing spend. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for your time. So I'm going to start with you, Ira. Let's start with what types of virtual events or broadcasts that enterprises actually conduct.
That's a great question. So I put an image on screen here, and this image highlights three common types of broadcasts that organizations might host. Starting at the bottom of the period, we see the casual day-to-day broadcasts. That's things like a sales manager briefing the sales team, or maybe an HR manager explaining a new policy to a few dozen internal folks. Now, the key here is that these are casual sessions with only local presenters. And with these sessions, the information, not the presenters, are really taking center stage. Now, these events are perfect for self-managed video meetings. They work really well. So that's part one. The top of the pyramid shows the most important events. I'm talking about major product launches, annual shareholder meetings, high-profile investor days, global user conferences, VIP summits, things like that. And these are mission critical, customer-facing sessions that are professionally managed and professionally produced. Now, during these sessions, everything has to be perfect. Organizations will spare no expense here. For example, in this case, the presenters are typically flown in to the same location to speak locally. But at most companies, events like this only happen a few times a year. So that's why they can afford such a big spend. Now, finally, let's look at the middle section of the pyramid. Now, these are the important virtual events that need to be professional, they need to be polished, but they also need to be cost effective. Now, I'm talking about monthly leadership panels, thought leadership sessions, business review meetings, virtual town halls, multi-location board meetings. Now, these events happen many times a year, and they often include remote presenters. Now, in this case, we need more than just a video meeting experience. But unfortunately, for these sessions, we don't typically have the budget for professional management and production services. And it's that middle area that's the real challenge here, and how to address that is the battle.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. But why don't standard video meetings work for these types of events, Andy?
Looking at it from the Zoom perspective, there's certainly nothing wrong with a normal Zoom meeting experience, but it's not necessarily curated, right? We talk about production value, which is not only the value that you put into making the event, but it's also the value that the audience is going to extract from it, right? It emphasizes the message. It gives you control not only of what the information is, but how the audience sees it and hears it. And so it helps you kind of wrap that entire experience together and make compelling content. And again, while meetings can be great in a casual environment, we need to elevate the importance of that message, but you don't have the budget to fly in the broadcast truck, right? The large crews to do that. You need tools that make it easier to add that production value, to build the curated experience while being able to do so in a repeatable and scalable way for the enterprise.
Right. So let's dig into exactly what types of issues that customers are facing. We'll start with you, Ira.
Sure. Overall, there are three challenges that most customers face when they try to host what I would call production level events from their standard meeting rooms. And the first is the ability to capture very high quality video and audio streams of the remote presenters. Now, video conferencing platforms are often used for this, but those systems need to optimize bandwidth. And to make the meeting accessible to people on different devices, what they do is they compress each video stream down. And then they combine those streams of multiple presenters into a single stream that is then sent to each person or location in the meeting. As a result, meeting room video conferencing systems don't have access to these high quality streams like you're seeing today of the remote participant or the remote presenter. And in the end, those key vital remote presenters, they're shown in much lower quality, which tremendously impacts the overall event experience.
So, Andy, I'm hoping that Zoom has a solution to this problem.
Absolutely. So, like Ira said, when you're working in a meeting experience, you end up inheriting the aesthetic of a meeting. And so, to be able to have the individual video and audio streams, that's where we've created something called custom AV for Zoom rooms. And what this allows us to do is to obtain the individual video and audio streams of the remote presenters that we can then incorporate into our production. But it's not just the isolated streams. Sometimes you need to provide some structure to that, whether that's overlays or the ability to compose a gallery view with a certain number of rows and columns, or to get a dedicated output of the active speaker. Zoom can dance with the rest of that production equipment and serve exactly the correct media streams that you need in order to be able to pull off the event. So it still has the efficiency benefits. It still has the ability to do all of those things that are automatically driven behaviors, but it gives it to you in a way that you can incorporate into production, add the production value, and again, curate the experience. So you can incorporate those remote presenters into the event without compromising the video quality. Each individual stream in Custom AV for Zoom Rooms maintains that high source quality so that the event can be whatever you can imagine it to look like.
Perfect. So, everyone's seen and heard clearly.
And
Um,
Angela, if
yeah,
I
go
can
ahead,
jump in
please.
for 1 second also, this is not that the meeting experience is not exceptional. This is not the platform doing something wrong. It's just not designed to move these high quality streams and video streams of people. It's designed to bring people together, not to host high quality webcasts like this.
Exactly. And that's why we're so excited that we can include these custom AV features directly in your Zoom Room subscription so that in those spaces where you identify an opportunity that we need to transform this meeting room from a place that we're going to be having a casual conversation to a place where we're adding production value, it's seamlessly integrated in. And the same architecture, the same footprint that you've put in place for that meeting transitions into a mode, like Ira was saying, where you can get those feeds and you can actually work with it into the production system without having to completely overhaul your infrastructure and process.
Love it. That's great. So, what's another issue that's keeping meeting rooms from hosting these production level important events?
Well, Andy tickled us a little bit, but the next step is to somehow take these signals and to create a production level experience. And for this, we need to take all the local and remote video, audio, and content streams, and we need to put them into the proper formats. And typically we would use NDI, SDI, and Dante. So then we need to send those signals to some kind of production mixer, and then back from the production mixer to displays and devices and remote locations. Now that sounds easy enough, but there's a problem. And the problem is that most typical meeting room video conferencing systems don't support NDI or SDI or Dante. So to make this work, we need to install signal converters and switchers and distribution equipment and, quite frankly, most of the time, an AV control system just to make it usable for the people trying to run the meeting. So in the end, that simple, easy, cost-effective video conferencing room somehow becomes an expensive, complex AV system that only trained technicians can operate. That is day to day in many enterprises.
Andy, tell us how custom AV for Zoom rooms can help us solve this problem.
So when you look at it, you've typically got your teleconferencing, video conferencing infrastructure on one side and your production pipeline on the other. And custom AV for Zoom Rooms sits right in the middle. It's the bridge between those two different worlds. And this is possible because, like Ira said, it's not only that you have the USB and the HDMI outputs that you would normally have from teleconferencing equipment, but you get those additional feeds, those NDI streams, SDI working with things like Blackmagic desktop video, and also being output to Dante. So send the audio out to a multi-channel audio device. So you have those stream captures, but then you have the ability to export them to production grade systems. And we're so happy that we've adopted these protocols because they're industry standard. So you don't have to be going through those intermediate conversion processes to get from the teleconferencing infrastructure to the production infrastructure. The other thing that's nice about this is that custom AV acts as a standardization layer, right? So in video conferencing, frame delivery can be variable. We're optimizing for the latency, for the speed of the conversation, right? So resolution may be going up and down, frames may be accelerated or held back, but the custom AV Zoom Room actually acts as that intermediate standardization layer so that not only do you have compatibility, but you have conformance to timing and resolution requirements that the downstream production systems are expecting. So it's more than just a gateway. It's that standardization layer that sits between the two. And then to Ira's point, to have an easy way to bring back that produced video feed and distribute it back to the display, such as in a hybrid event, right? Where you're going to have the production system and then you're going to put the result back up on screen. That same ease of use now becomes an ingest platform. So we can pull in that Dante feed as a microphone. We can take that NDI feed and make it as a camera. It comes directly into the room with no intermediary requirements. I mean, that offers a lot of value for these high-end spaces.
And it's kind of a 1-2 punch when you think about it. First, I have trouble getting the high quality signals, and then I have to buy all this AV equipment, connect it with cables, and figure out how to operate it just to get those signals where I want them to go. And that's the opposite of how a session should be. It should be about the information and the talent. It shouldn't be about cables and switching.
That's right. So we talked about quality, we talked about signals. Ira, what's the third challenge?
Well, the third challenge is perhaps the most significant of all, and that's event management. To be able to create a production event, every minute needs to be choreographed. And what that means is that the right signals need to be sent to and from each location at exactly the right time. Simple enough, but unfortunately, meeting rooms are designed to be managed by local staff only. So people in London manage the London meeting room, and people in New York manage the New York meeting room. So creating a polished event, including multiple locations, multiple remote presenters, requires this amazing coordination between support staff around the world. So first, they need to plan everything down to the minute. Then they do rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal. And then finally, during the event, everybody must do things exactly correctly and on time. And I can tell you from experience of doing this, this is extremely difficult, even for amazingly skilled teams who do it for a living, because even the smallest tiny little mistake in a live session can have disastrous results.
Andy, you've never had anything go wrong in any of your
No,
meetings
of
that
course,
you've
everything
run, right?
always always goes as planned, right? No, of course not. And that's why we have to be
That's right.
flexible to the real-time circumstances of our events and be able to access the right piece of equipment or the right signal at the right time from a centralized dashboard. And that's why I'm super excited about the custom AV controller. This is a dedicated application that we've created to pair with our Zoom room to be able to show exactly all the signal routing there in one centralized interface. But it doesn't only work for just one room. You can do that across all the rooms in your fleet at the same time. You can keep adding those different endpoints to the interface. And it's one place for the operator to sit in front of and see AV management across the entire fleet from one centralized dashboard. But we haven't only done this for ourselves. We actually opened this to the industry and to developers as well through our Zoom Room Controller SDK. So now third parties can integrate that same control that we have over those AV streams directly into their workflow. And I truly believe that there's no more of a seamless workflow than using your favorite tools and having them talk directly to the infrastructure, through these protocols, through these APIs and SDKs that we offer. So we've taken an open approach to it where we have a first party controller. We're really excited about its ability to, overview all those video feeds and give you control at any moment of any of those pieces. But we're also excited about the integration into automation platforms, third party vendors, and all the things that we can do with that. So the custom AV controller is one of my favorite pieces of this story because it solves that problem so completely.
I have to say though, you're explaining it well, but you're underselling it. The ability to centrally manage this event. So one person needs to know to switch camera to send that signal to this display. It's unbelievable the amount of people and time and rehearsal that we can remove from the loop and simply have a great event. I think that's a tremendous benefit.
And it's a different way of thinking about it than, video conferencing providers have in the past, right? They've focused the hybrid meeting experience on like a touch panel controller that's designed for the people in the room to actually operate. But when you have these produced experiences, you want the presenters focused on the content, not on the operations of the space. And traditionally, they haven't scaled the control layer of that past that tablet controller. And so you end up with situations where you've got AV teams with like dozens of, Samsung tablets stacked on top of each other, and they're searching for the right one to see, what button to press. We can remove all of that intermediate process. Just like we simplified the AV management, remove all those converters from the process, we've now reduced the number of operator stations. We can give the right person control at the right moment through the custom AV controller.
So Andy, let's talk real world examples. Do you have any that you can share around existing customers that are currently using this?
Absolutely. So I just visited with a financial services customer in New York City, and I was walking through their Manhattan headquarters, and I was looking at a conversation around these exact topics of how are they going to migrate from the older ways of doing this type of production to be able to serve that middle tier of the pyramid, right? And what we saw there was again a lot of HDMI and USB converters, a lot of space just physically on a rack, multiple racks of equipment that are designed just to be able to connect their broadcast infrastructure to their teleconferencing equipment. We talked about the pain points and working with the IT managers, help them understand, what they have to do in order to get that network to be compatible with it. And of course, we talked about the management side of it. All of them have separate dashboards. There are multiple products in the mix. Being able to orchestrate that and scale that has been a challenge. And as with the instigating factor for us to have this conversation was that they're scaling. They need to be able to do more of this. They need to bring more rooms online. That middle portion of the pyramid is growing in size for this organization. So it was critical for them to be able to do this in a scalable way. Even though they've been able to, hack together a solution during the pandemic, they needed, more capabilities in order to be able to make it happen. So when we talked to them about custom AV and we started the build process, we reduced the footprint of that space by a third at least by simply having the AV come directly in and out of the Zoom room. And we simplified the footprint from an operations perspective. So now instead of having 6 different stations for operators to sit next to each other, now all that's down to one laptop and the team can focus on the actual production components of it, not just on bridging the compatibility. And the IT managers love it too because they have a centralized management dashboard, just like they have for the Zoom rooms and the rest of their fleet. And they can see all that IO there as well and manage the orchestration from a network perspective. So now they're bringing on new auditoriums, they're connecting to multiple buildings together, and they've really streamlined their operations by deploying custom AV for Zoom rooms.
Ira, does that resonate with you since you've had decades of, AV experience in the industry? What are your thoughts?
Well, I've designed these kind of broadcast rooms for decades. I've managed people who are managing and running those. I've been in those meetings, and I can tell you, for me, custom AV for Zoom rooms, it makes good sense. It's cost effective, it's easy and quick to deploy, and it solves real world problems without the complexity and cost of the old school approaches to hosting these virtual events. And best of all, and I really like this, we're adding broadcast to my existing meeting room without stepping on that Zoom Rooms experience I'm already familiar with. So my learning curve is basically zero. It's what I do every day, and I'm just extending it with the tools I need for broadcast. So I think it's smart. I think it's very smart.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to close it out today with this discussion. Thank you so much to Andy and Ira. Remember to contact us and your Zoom representative with any other questions and concerns that you might have. But remember that this solution, custom AVV for Zoom rooms, is included in your Zoom room subscription. So you don't have any additional cost there, and you can go ahead and try this out today. You can go download it now, and you can also get free trials of Zoom rooms if you haven't experienced that yet. So go to zoom.com/rooms, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.